Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Thomas Expert Series. Thank you for joining us today. We're going to get started in a minute. In the meantime, please just double check, make sure your microphone is muted. This expert series will be on demand within 24 hours, so please let your colleagues know how much you enjoyed the talk today and have them sign up for some future talks or direct them to the on-demand tab. Get everyone a little warmed up today. Let's see where everyone is tuning in from. I'm in New Jersey. Danielle, where are you at?
Oh, I am in glamorous upstate New York in Albany, or right outside of it. It is freezing. It looks
Nice
like
and
a
cold.
tundra out there, but with charm, or so people keep telling me. So good.
Got Philly, Minnesota, Jersey, Florida. At least Florida, maybe it's a little bit warmer than up here. North Carolina. Am I blanking on it? Michigan? Maybe? Yes, thank you. Blanked on my states there for a sec. Um, we'll go ahead and get started. At this time, I'm going to turn it over to Danielle talking about consolidating hand protection for the growing CE market.
All right, folks. Now, let's see. Share my screen here. Probably put it in presentation mode.
Yep, looks good.
Okay, let's see. Having limited visibility here. So let me ask, how many people are here on a Friday in December? Gosh, so many. Wow. All right. Okay. So hello, everyone. And thank you so much for joining us today to discuss consolidating your hand protection amidst the ever expanding market of controlled environments. We're going to be driving into the exciting world of personal protective equipment. My name is Danielle Woodruff, and I am the marketing manager for controlled environment and food safety at PIP. And I know what you're thinking. There could not be a more exciting topic of discussion for a Friday, but I invite you to take a moment to consider this. Those who manufacture, distribute, and use hand protection in our current markets are all looking for the same thing today. We want to be able to do more with less, and that's why we're here. We're going to talk to you about Grippaz, which is a line of gloves that gives you more options for use without adding more SKUs. So let's start out by talking about your problems. Chances are, if you're sitting here and you're listening to me talk about gloves on a Friday, you've come across some critical control points in some facility workflows that have to do with chemicals or biological agents or unwanted static buildup and discharge. But let's start with the biggie, because multiple safety institutions, including the Lab Safety Institute, my personal favorite, tell us that chemical exposure takes the cake when it comes to workplace injuries within controlled environments. So what's going on here? Like, why does this happen so often? I know I don't need to tell anyone on this call that different chemicals react differently to different materials, but how often is this at the forefront of our mind when it comes to our PPE? How often are people trained on how to properly remove gloves that have made chemical contact? And how often are these gloves tested as barrier protection to ensure that they hold up against the chemicals being used in different facilities? So the answer here is standards, everyone's favorite. So EN 374 is long and it's complicated, but when it comes to Grippaz, when it comes to these gloves, here's what you need to know. Passing the first part of the standards means that we know that this glove passes the liquid penetration test. And that simply means that we take the glove, we put it in a tank of water up to the cuff, blow it up like a balloon, and if air bubbles come out, guess what? That is not good barrier protection. But what about chemicals themselves? This is where we come to the permeation and degradation tests, where chemicals are applied to the surface of glove materials, and then we wait. We wait 60 minutes. We wait 180 minutes. We wait 480 minutes. We wait longer than that. And if things are still intact, if the material hasn't been degraded, and if there is no breakthrough, we're waiting for the breakthrough time, then that means that is excellent tested protection against the chemicals that the glove is being tested for. And while we're on chemical testing, Grippaz was also tested in this method to an STM standard, which is a fancy standard of way of basically saying that they're safe to use when you're handling fentanyl, and should it be present, we've also tested it with gastric acid underneath the EN standard. So the other main point to address here is the AQL, which is the acceptable quality level. And this is another safety point scored by this line of gloves, because industrial gloves typically have a level of 4, meaning that there's 40 defective gloves per 1,000. And it never sounds like a lot until you're the person who gets a defective glove, but Grippaz has a 1.5 AQL, the equivalent of a medical grade glove. So safety managers are going to see lower instances of glove defects across the board with these products. Grippaz also has some pretty impressive breakthrough times, even though to all appearances is built like a disposable glove. Why this? The nitrile in Grippaz gloves has 0 fillers, and this is important for 2 reasons. One is that a pure nitrile formulation coupled with a thicker mill of a glove means better protection against degradation and permeation, whether it's against chemical degreasers or animal fats and proteins. Now, the other important reason for this is that when you are handling chemicals, it's important to be able to have some dexterity, some tactile sensitivity. It's important, right? Because this nitrile doesn't have any fillers, when you apply nitrile gloves, people usually notice that there isn't a ton of dexterity as opposed to latex. But if there's no fillers, that means that when the nitrile feels the warmth of your hands and the warmth of your body, it becomes more pliable and more stretchy. So you would be able to have the dexterity and the tactile sensitivity that people who use latex gloves, if they're lucky enough not to have a contact dermatology reaction, they have the same type of comfort that you would find in a latex glove. All right, I promise this is the last one for standards. We're going to go into environmental standards, which in this case means the hazards we can't necessarily see, but may also have the biggest safety impact, and nothing encompasses that better than the impact of electrostatic discharge. It's not good for people, it's not good for products, and we humans are typically the ones who make this hazard in the worst possible way. So we're going to tackle this by addressing the main factor of ESD susceptibilities and workflows. And first, when parts, devices, or processes are susceptible to ESD damage. The electrostatic discharge is one of the few hazards that has grown and expanded into different products, processes, and industries as technology advances. So while this used to be such a niche hazard, now all of a sudden it's expanded into so many different markets: automotive, food, any type of electronic device, packaging, consumer electronics. Suddenly people are realizing that tiny particles are attracted to surfaces that have a lot of ESD buildup. And then they can erratically discharge that energy into really sensitive products. So there are only a few hazards that I can think of that have suddenly blown up like this, and ESD is definitely trending at the forefront. Or standards, I know, but don't worry. Instead of painstakingly explaining these, I'm going to sum these tests up in one super solid truth for you. Material performance matters. As we mentioned when we came to chemical, Grippaz is made up of that proprietary nitrile formulation that, because it doesn't contain any fillers, has an impressive static dissipative range at 10 to the 8th. And that means even though we generate so much static just by being ourselves and moving around, we don't have to worry about the effectiveness of our hand protection when it comes to dissipating static. It's important to have static sensitive and static dissipative PPE, like a full garment configuration, but when it comes to hand protection, these can be used in multiple places. They have a really great range. And you're seeing so much of this in different areas such as automotive, again, aerospace, but places that you wouldn't really think glass manufacturing, for example, anything where you can attract particles, or if you have any type of sensitive process or equipment, that erratic discharge could just ruin everything before you know it. So in the end, the big question is why Grippaz? And I appreciate y'all staying with me through this. And we're going to wrap this up with no more talk of standards. That's it. That's a reward. And so we're going to wrap this up by talking about what makes Grippaz unique that we may not have touched at. So at first glance, it may look similar to some of the thicker mill nitrile disposables you see out on the market, but in reality, there's 4 key differences that really make the performance of this glove over the top. And those are grip, its formulation, its design, and its durability. And those are the most important takeaways from this entire presentation. And while they're not new concepts in and of themselves, Grippaz technology and how it applies to them is. So we're going to talk about grip for a sec. Their claim to fame is that it's patented fish scale design, but the main perk here is that the grip pattern is both on the outside and the inside of the glove. So it's not just gripping those greasy channel locks or mechanically separated chicken parts, it's also gripping the user's hand from the inside of the glove. Second is something that we touched on, which is formulation. The nitrile in Grippaz gloves has 0 fillers, and that's important for a couple of reasons. One is that the pure nitrile formulation, coupled with a thicker mill of the glove, means better protection against degradation and permeation, whether it's against chemical degreasers or animal fats and proteins. So 2 is how the nitrile reacts to body heat. What we just discussed is, when nitrile gets warmed up, it becomes more pliable, more flexible, right? So as you wear the glove, you're going to find dexterity and tactile sensitivity that no one would normally associate with the nitrile glove this thick, because gloves contain fillers and they don't conform the same way. And that's what people are used to when they see a nitrile glove. So it's coupled with Grippaz rotated thumb grip, and that vacuum seals the glove to this little problem area right here. And you end up with the most comfortable and highest dexterity nitrile glove for the mill on the market. Next up is the design. And as a marketing manager for food safety who keys in on the hazards of food contamination as well as controlled environment, this is my favorite feature, although it is occasionally overlooked. So we discussed grip, and we realized that fish scale pattern isn't there just to look pretty, but it turns out it's not just the grip. How the pattern is engineered actually creates a ripstop effect if the glove is torn or punctured. So this offers protection on 2 different levels. For the user, reduced skin exposure. So if you're working for chemicals or you need integrity when it comes to ESD protection, this is important. And for the product, it's reduced contamination. You're not going to get torn bits of gloves flaking off anywhere. You're not going to be able to have exposure, or that integrity is completely maintained with that line. So last and certainly not least is durability. These last up to 5 times longer than regular disposables. And if there hasn't been anything like a chemical contamination on the glove, they are easily redonnable. You're going to see this a lot, and the backing statement comes down to 2 things that we've already discussed: the formulation and the thickness. Nitrile is a tough polymer to begin with, and with this filler-free high mill blend, it becomes more durable than any disposable out there. Now, I gotta say, this is different for me only because usually when we do webinars, they are considerably longer, and I was a little nervous about having a presentation that was only 30 minutes. And now we got some time left for questions, which I am really excited about. And before we move on to questions, I want you to keep in mind that the main takeaway here is that when it comes to hazards in controlled environments, Grippaz offers the best of both worlds in terms of the dexterity and comfort of a light-duty glove with enough horsepower for an amazingly wide variety of applications. So if you are in your facility and have multiple SKUs and multiple gloves that don't address all of the hazards in different work areas in your flow, it's time to do more with less SKUs and actually get some multi-hazard protection that address multiple areas within your work environment.
And
That is what I
while you
want.
guys are thinking and typing out your questions, I'm going to hand it over to Beth to take you into the environment.
Well, we've got two different areas to show you. I'm going to share my screen, and you can see we go right into the expert series. And the expert series is filled with PIP resources from their welcome video through their literature, PDFs, web links, and you can see here's all the Grippaz and videos. These can be viewed, they can be downloaded, they can be added to your virtual briefcase right here at the top that lets you go back and look at it at a later date. From here, I'm going to take you into their lab. Their lab is pretty new, and oh, somebody just got jumped out. Okay. And in this environment, you can see that it's segmented by market. I'm going to just show you. Here's the video for Grippaz right here. So very easy to maneuver the environment, to play, to download.
Protection gloves represent.
And stay tuned. You're going to be hearing from PIP in the very near future about some goings on in their labs, and they'll be sending you invites. So I'm going to turn it back to you. There's some questions in the chat.
Let me see here. All right. Oh, wow. Okay. Oh, the skin effects or secondary effects of your gloves. Rhonda. Rhonda, this is a topic that is so near and dear to my heart that really, as we all probably know and experience, came to the forefront during COVID when everyone had to wear all the gloves all the time and found out that certain proteins in latex just reacted so badly to everything. Now, you're probably aware that OSHA-sized contact dermatitis is like pretty much the most prevalent hazard when it comes to wearing disposable gloves, and that is not wrong. So when it comes to the skin effects or secondary effects of our gloves, I am so happy to tell you that because of the way this nitrile has been formulated, all of those extra proteins, all of that filler that you would normally see in nitrile gloves aren't there. And that has made a glove that makes it more comfortable and fit and form for users to wear for longer periods of time. Now, I am going to put the disclaimer out there that if you are wearing these gloves for a long period of time and you are sweating within them and you don't give a chance for your organ to breathe when you take them off and you don't, wash them properly before redonning, those are issues. But we also do offer a lot of really great assets to show people like, hey, this is how you don, this is how you doff. Please be sure to wear them for only this amount of time before you take them out. Let your hands breathe. Here's how to redon them again if the integrity, if they aren't like too sweaty. It's one of those things where people don't have it in the front of their minds. So they want to be able to just have it in front and know that like, hey, I need to take these off, let these breathe. But we have never had any types of complaints from any skin effects. I mean, when we put these in environments where people normally use latex gloves or they're using even finger cots that are latex, not only are they satisfied with the mobility, like the dexterity of these gloves, but also the comfortability and the fact that their hands don't feel itchy, they don't feel kind of gross after wearing them for a while. And that's what happens when you put a pure polymer product on your skin, as opposed to something that might be irritating. So I hope that answers for you. Let me see. What has driven innovation in your controlled environment PPE? Necessity. Absolutely necessity. As technology has been advancing, it has been a struggle for so many markets to keep up with the proper PPE, just be able to function inside these environments. And we see that so much in industrial markets. I mean, we have a lot of people who come to us and they're just like, look, all of a sudden we are installing like all this new equipment in our facility, and all of a sudden we need ESD protection in our hand protection. They've never had to do that before. Particles are getting smaller. People are using lasers for things they never thought they'd use lasers for before. And people need help navigating and being able to understand and know what PPE is usable in that space. So necessity for the invention, right? We try to keep up as much as we can, especially with our industrial customers who are just new to navigating this spot. We have chemical permeation reference charts to identify various chemicals in the correct glove. It is useful for both customers and reps, and we do have one. We have a chemical chart. We always list what the glove tests to on the product page of our site, along with the standard, the breakthrough times, and the chemicals. So if I want to know, like, will this glove, stand up to formaldehyde for over 160 minutes without damaging my hands? Yeah, it will. And you can go to our product page and tell that. But there are also chemical resistance charts and tools on our website. We have a lot of resources for that. So I encourage you to definitely check it out. And we encourage workers to wear their gloves. Training. You have to get people to invest in their own safety, and effective safety culture is one of the hardest things in these spaces. Getting people to be able to invest in themselves, have a positive association with their PPE, especially for hand protection, right? People always want to take off their gloves, especially if their hands get itchy, especially if they've been wearing them for a long time, especially if they can't handle things correctly, if there's no dexterity, if they feel like they're fumbling a lot, if there's no grip. You have to have the right components that address the right hazards for your environment. And then it's training, always training up, keeping them apprised of what they need to do in order to be safe. It takes a it takes a village to get people to invest in their own safety and also make it a safe space for them to feel free to do so within their environments. So constantly talking about it, constantly training and giving resources is a huge part of that. How do we make sure that we provide the right or adequate PPE to employees? What do we need to look at? Well, for us, because standards and technologies and spaces are always changing, new hazards are always presenting themselves, we rely on our team of specialists. Jennifer Barnes, who's on this call, who doesn't have a voice right now, is definitely one of those. So providing the right or adequate PPE really comes down to working with your manufacturer and understanding not only what it is that they offer in terms of tested protection in these environments, but what works within your space. So being able to assess your space for your needs, providing some back data for that, and then working with your specialist to make sure that not only what you have meets the spec, but also it's something that people who work in these environments want to wear. Oh, great resources in the lab rooms. Thank you. Awesome. Can we Thomasize the chem-resistant dock? Yes, we are huge fans of co-branding. We love to co-brand. We love to co-brand for you guys. We would absolutely do that for that and pretty much any other flashy, awesome resource that we have. That is always a possibility. Static discharge is a growing concern for us, but we don't really know if our PPE needs to be ESD safe or just some. Do you have any importer guide on how to approach this? Yes, so here's the thing. You really can't go overkill when it comes to being ESD safe. There are different ranges of resistance for different products, but you're not going to see that typically be something that would affect price or affect performance or anything of that nature. I mean, there is definitely a range that you need to stay within in order to provide ESD safe ranges for static sensitive environments. But the bigger thing that we find is that that's not the only form of protection that's needed. It might be ESD safety and chemical protection, or ESD safety and particulate protection or ESD safety and thermal protection. And PIP specializes in multi-hazard protection like you wouldn't believe, because it's never just one. It's never just protection from one thing. That's the thing that we're finding. There's always so many. So yes, we do have guides and inputs for that, especially for our learning materials and systems. So if you want to take a look at all of the things that we've offered for documents for this webinar and also in our lab, they can be found there, or you can reach out to Jen and I, even if you're looking for something specific or have any specific questions. Thomas sells ESD mats, wrist straps, grounding systems, but the first thing we need to sell is gloves. Use the data tech sheet info from PIP. It's a little different from the competition, from the safety contacted your customer. Jennifer is the best and great in front of customers. She really is. And I'm not just saying that because I work with her. She's really great. I have learned so much from Jen. When I started working in this industry, I'd never worked in controlled environments or safety before. And let me tell you, if you need to know anything, the woman has a bevy of experience and she is good to listen to. Came in under 3 minutes. I don't think that's ever happened in my life. Wow. And on a Friday. Here we go. There aren't any more questions. This has been really fun, guys, even though I can't really see any of your faces. I appreciate you showing up. Again, like, I know Friday webinars so hard. It's the holiday season. It's cold and it's gray out, but you're here and that warms our hearts, truly. So thank you.
It was great, Danielle. Thank you so much.
Oh, there was Patrick. Does a mil thickness stand for 1/1000th of an inch? So millimeter. We work off the metric here. So Grippaz, there are a variety of these Grippaz gloves, and they span from, I believe, 6 mil to 8 mil. And that and the cuff length and the color are the only differences between this range of gloves. Everything still holds to the same testing. They still function in all of those environments that we mentioned on the webinar. And if you go to our website, you'll see what those are as well. This just, we found that the preference, depending on the application, like our food safety glove, that tends to be a thicker mil, really depends on the applications in which it's used. And if color or cuff length or mil thickness happens to be higher there, then that's where we kind of differentiate those.
Any other last minute questions? Not seeing any typing, so I think we're okay. Thank you so much, Danielle and PIP, for joining us today. Be sure to hang around the environment after the talk and explore, and make sure you explore their lab. And we'll be having talks again in January, but take this opportunity to check out some of our on-demand talks, and I hope you all have a great rest of your day.
Thanks so much, folks. I really appreciate you guys coming out to listen to me today. Have a great weekend.
You too. Thank you.
Thanks, y'all.
Thank you.